Okay, I'll share my screen. Auzu billahi minash shaitanir rajim. Bismillahir rahmanir rahim. Alhamdulillah nahmaduhu wa nasta'inuhu wa nastaghfiruhu wa nu'minu bihi wa natawakkalu alayhi wa na'udzu billahi min shururi anfusina wa min sayyiati a'malina. So here, as you see in today's session, we will be finishing our primary. We had two module, two section. One is the primary, which is an overview, and then secondary, which go deeper into each module. So here today, the outline, if you look at, we have gone into basics in the first three lectures, and I touched a little bit of Quranic psychology and the diagram of Enneagram. So as a result, we have a kind of mental picture of how this two part or three part of us, and as you know, the diagram I showed, which is the psychological model of the International Islamic Psychology Association, which is, of course, again drawn based on not only Ibn Arabi and Rumi, but 18 scholars, living scholars, put input into it. It was a PhD thesis of Abdullah Rothman. I don't know whether you know her. He's a convert and he teaches in Cambridge. So he is actually had a Quranic psychology he did in last Ramadan, 30 days. So that he has gone through various part of it. But as you know, we will know more slowly because Lale Bakhtiar is a psychologist. She started with philosophy, but she later found that instead of philosophy, she should learn psychology. So, and then she did her psychology degree, and then she started practicing as a counselor. And then she was a member of Psychology Association in America, and then, as you know, the DSM, they did now DSM-5, which is the diagnostics manual for the psychologist, how to do treatment. So she is a contributor to that even. And she wrote quite a lot of articles in their journal. And later she was introduced to this Enneagram, and we have gone through the history of it. So anyway, I have chosen her because I found she is the only person who documented this Sufi Enneagram and corrected whatever Gurdjieff tried to bring. So here, today's lecture, as you see there, we are going to cover module 1, our soul body, briefly, how elements and qualities affect our mind and behavior. So there is a 2 slide for it and a 3 slide. And then we will talk about our animal soul, again briefly with 1 slide. And then there is another 2 slide, how our soul body, which is our nafs, which is attached to our body and which is physical in terms of in this world, but it is actually fed through the spirit. So that's how elements and qualities affect our mind and behavior. That's 1 slide we will be talking about, 2 slide. And then various things, how willpower and free will help us to make our choice. That is one of the area we will be looking. There is a 3 slide on this particular module. Um, because in my introduction, I said, "Man yahdillahu wala mudilla lahu." Now, only God who guides us, and it's only God who can misguide us. But man yasha'u, a lot of people misunderstand that it is God who is predestined. If I was supposed to be misguided, it's already written in my destiny. So even if I work hard, I will never be guided because Allah has put it. That's not what it is. That's what here I will give examples of Quranic verses how Shaitan tells us misguidance. Because Allah gave us willpower and ikhtiyar, Allah leads straight to only wrongdoers. So that's what here the teaching is. And then of course, Allah guidance never come unless it is as a divine grace, because it's not actually happen automatically that if I do this and I will get this automatically. It has a kind of divine grace component without which, even when I was trying to put together this slide, I tried to release it one day early because I have been reading it for a whole week. And to summarize this, what to put and what not to put here, and how I concisely present these particular thoughts, is also a capacity which comes from Allah. Because that's why he says, "Wama tawfiq illa billah." I don't have a capability unless Allah gives it to me. So I couldn't decide how to do it. It happens with every lecture. And I found that even Ghazali told us that one day he went to give the lecture. He was such a famous, of course, the intellectual in his time, and so many people come, and he thought he's going to give knowledge to people, and he went there, his mouth is shut, he can't talk. So and he was in that condition for 3 days and nights. And that brought him the realization, because his brother Ahmed Ghazali was telling him that you are just busy with your intellect. You are not looking into your heart at all. And what you are doing is not what spiritual work is. You will never come close to God unless you know who you are. So he was ignoring because he thought he's a philosopher. He thought he understands human dimension. So those sort of things. Anyway, so here we will be talking this slide, and then as you see here, our consciousness is, I have a almost maximum slide. I might skip some of it. I'll leave it to you, and I'll release this. I released all of the slides. I wanted them to put into shared drive. I don't know it has been put there. So, and then we'll talk about our conscience, fuad, which is the inner heart, and then our intellect, which is the reason, which is aql. And that is, so I'll end there, and this will complete the full dimension of our inner self. This is only high level. And so, but with this knowledge, my suggestion is we should start working on a new gram, as opposed to, because our objective is not to become psychologists. We are not actually going to teach anybody and take money for giving counseling, right? It's not our profession. It's our self-development. That's what our job is. Because if you want to be a professional psychologist, there is a Quranic Psychology or Islamic Psychology Association. They have a course there. What Abdullah Rahman teaches, or some of the post, other teachers are teaching. Yeah, you can go and take those courses and then see whether you can get the certifications, because we are not here to get certification. We are just developing our awareness about ourselves so that we can start working on it as a group. So this is my take on it. I don't know if you have any other expectation other than what I am thinking. Um, yeah. So anyway, first slide is that how elements and qualities affect our mind and behavior. We did touch on this, but we needed to still go into it because we have been studying module 1 for our last 3 sessions. According to Ghazali, knowledge is soul's prey. The senses are its net. So with our senses, of course, we will catch what through the knowledge we are trying to catch. The physical body is its vehicle, the bearer of its net. As a result, it is for this reason that a person needs a body. His body is a vehicle made from water, earth, heat, air. So for this reason, he is weak and in danger of destruction, from which because of hunger and thirst, and from without because of fire, water, being the prey of enemies and beasts and the like. So yeah, this is just my chat GPT drawing, which is showing our body is nothing but the earth, because and then this other bigger world is affected by it. So, but as you see, our inner self is integrated with the soul, which has all these senses, and he talks about it there in that paragraph. The elements possess the natural disposition to ascend, descend, to move in a circular direction. Each element is joined by one of its qualities to that which is below it, above it. You know, I showed the original diagram of the cosmology. The earth has a circle around it, water, and then air. So, and then of course this ether, and then the other planets, the moon, and then all the the 7 planets which you can see. So they all have impact on the earth. If it has impact on earth, it has impact on us because our body is made of earth. So, and everything happen in a circular way. So each element is joined by one of its qualities, and that's what below it and above it he's talking about. And she's saying that by coldness and water to air, above by moisture, air to water below it by moisture, and fire above it by heat. As you see, when sun rays fall on earth, as you know, 2/3 of earth is water. That water become vapor and it goes up, and then of course when cold happens, then it falls again as a water. So so that is the thing, this how fire makes the fire from sun makes it to rise, ascend, and how cold makes it to make water again and fall again. So and then that's how this whole thing happens. This dryness versus wetness, cold versus hot, and all those 4 elements. The movement of the elements produces the humors within by which in turn one's natural temperament is determined. So our mood is managed because of our body temperature and body this movement of all these 4 humors. And that's why of course there is a lecture of which we discussed before, which was I think someone posted in our group of that Hakim Arshuleta. So anyway, here Ibn Sina, he's saying that the breath infuses the natural energy into the liver, where it then activates the soul's powers in the humors once the humors have been generated. The natural energy differentiates as it infuses into the four humors, animating their nutrition function. So these four humor, the hot, and then the cold and dry, and the wet. So as you see here, these four colors, this is in the body. And this vilius, with digestion, it helps with digestion. And the blood, when the breath is infused, it gives the power of attraction. Quwwatul shahwaniya, which is the desire and all those sort of things. And serous phlegmatic humor, which actually which causes things to move, and especially all this secretion happens. Say you discharge things out of your body, and then atrevilius black bile humor, it helps the retention, all the energy you extract from the food you are eating, and all these elements you are taking air through the breath, to the water you are drinking with the food, and of course all the minerals you are taking as a part of your fruit and veggies you are eating every day. So that's how it happens. And as here he's saying, yellow bile, sifar, this color, suffer, or that it is choleric tendency, it has personality type, and then it has the fire in it, and that is the cause of anger, and that gives this summer feeling, the way summer comes to the earth. So our body has a summer when, of course, this is the strongest part of us, this heart, and that gives the anger. And the blood, dom, the sanguine character. This we discussed in one of the lecture. So I will not go much. I just put it here because here he says that natural power, Ibn Sina, in the liver, natural power located in the liver, because three part is very important related to our psychology. One is liver, one is the heart, another is the brain. That is our next slide. So here he's talking about there is a hierarchy. The liver is in the bottom, heart is in the middle, and brain is in the top. This is how it is structured in our vertical body self. So the link between our psychic, spiritual, moral, physical worlds is that of the breath, an aspect of spirit within us. So yeah, the Riyah, Ruh, they are linked. So breath, according to Ibn Sina, is the link between psychic, spiritual, and physical worlds. By controlling the breath, of course, you control your thoughts and a lot of things. It plays a role in the physiological functions of the soul by preparing it to activate its energies or powers. So that is one of the tools we will be using as a part of how, when you detect a particular negative traits, how do you work on it to wipe it out in your dimension and replace it with a positive trait to bring the khair, because khair is what Allah is holding in his hand, biyadihil khair. So he's always want to give it to us as long as istida'at, this disposition is there. When readiness is there, it comes to us, but we need to make it ready. The breath and spirit Ruh provides three energies to the embryo: the vital energy, Quwwatul Shahwaniya, and then to the heart, natural energy, Quwwatul, what is this? Quwwatul Gadabiya. I think the spelling is wrong. And to the liver and psychic or natural energy, Quwwatul Nafsaniya, to the brain. According to Ibn Sina, breath arises in the heart, passes through into principal centers of body, as three kinds of energy lingering in them long enough to enable them to impart to their respective temperamental properties, beginning with the vital energy located in the heart. And there is an article someone posted in the group again. His name is Cyrus Ali Jagash. He wrote a paper on Ibn Arabi mentioned ethical body. If you God appoint you as Imam, because as you know, Imam of the left and Imam of the right, um, they are there to help us. This spiritual Imam. I think it will be covered in the lecture. What's his name? The CD Faris Abdul Hadi. He's going to cover this whole structure of sainthood, how these four imam and the other spiritual people who are available to help us in this spiritual journey, waiting for us, seeking the help. So, and here he's saying that appetitive faculty, which is located in liver, home of vegetable soul, nafs and nabatiya, from where comes temperament, shahwa. The desire comes from liver. Heart faculty is in the physical heart, the place of animal soul, from where comes anger and courage. As you will find, these two things very important, anger and courage, and how without courage you have no himma, no motivation, and without anger you cannot actually of course resist anything or those sort of things. And we will explain with the example when we do the soul work. And then the reason of intellectual faculty is located in the brain, and that will help us to judge, discern, home of rational soul, from where comes ilm, knowledge, wisdom. So this is three faculty we very important for our soul work. And the justice, if you want to bring justice, it has a control over all of them. And that's what all these three faculties are. And we are still talking module 1, and he's talking about nafs al-ammarah, how nafs al-ammarah, which is our ego, is part of our motivational system. And that's why when you say that die before your death, you have to kill your ego. No, you can't kill it. Without ego, you can't function even. So our motivational system or animal soul gives us two kinds of motion and impulses according to Ibn Sina. The power for motivation is two kinds. Either it motivates in so far as it gives an impulse, or in so far it causes motion. Now the motivational power, in so far as it provides the impulse, is two parts. The concupiscent power of lust, which is the attraction to pleasure, preservation of the species, which gives you motivation to get married and to find your partner. And then this avoidance, the irascible power of anger, the avoidance of harm and pain, preservation of the individual, is basically that power give you all the resistance. And that's power. When you get angry, you body go into flight mode, because your brain or your things doesn't work, because your body whole energy transfer to your limbs, and your mind get fogged. So and that's why prophetic teaching is, when you had angry, if you are standing position, sit down. If you are sitting position, you lie down. There is all those hadiths are there, how to deal with too much anger. So those sort of things, we'll talk about this. Muhasibi is so particular about how to analyze, and Muhasibi is referenced here so much because he is always that's why his name is Muhasibi. He did a hisab of his self, and yeah, he's saying that what happens when our animal soul dominates us? On the other side of the spirit, ever striving with our higher nature, urging our consciousness, nafs al-mulhamah, which is our qalb, which is our consciousness, to enter and pass through the gateway opening on the world of our senses. So we access to the world through our senses, is our animal soul. So as you know, animal soul has this all the senses, and the seat of the lust and anger, which have the potential of tending towards the excessive quantity of too much or too little, and depravity in qualitative terms, this undeveloped. One is overdeveloped, another is underdeveloped, another is undeveloped. So undeveloped is the qualitative, and too much, too little is quantitative. So those are the things we will terms we'll be using our soul work using Enneagram. It is the animal soul or ego that can oppose goodness. It always strives for its own interest, regardless of what is uh, pleasing to God or due to fellow creatures. It is the ego in its in unregenerate in its regenerate state. Okay, I have to check which word this word is. The animal soul that commands to wrongdoing when it is headstrong, indicating excessiveness. So as you see, basically, Muhasibi is giving us clues how things happen in our self. And then we move into module 3 to 9. And in here, it's talking about elements and qualities, how it affect our mind and behavior. Again, Muhasibi is saying, place the animal soul where God Almighty placed it. Describe it as He has described it. Withstand it according to His command. For it can be greater enemy to you than Shaitan. Shaitan gains power over you only by means of it. So Shaitan cannot get into us unless we allow it, because it goes through our those the lust, and of course we will know more about it. So he's giving us clue. Nafs al-ammarah is the one which allows Shaitan, because Shaitan know the tricks of it. Shaitan gains power over you by means of it, and you consent to it. You know to what it calls you, and that it was created weak. And though its nature is strong in greed and dissimulation, for it's self-confident, self-assertive, disobedient to God, and untrustworthy. So this is some of the built-in feature of our ego self. Its sincerity consists in lying, and then its claims are based on vanity. All that comes from its deceitful. So this is, of course, Muhasibi is already identified what are the things Shaitan can do, and because we have that nature in our nafs ammarah, nothing that it does is praiseworthy. Be not deluded by the animal soul and its hopes and its desires. If you leave it alone, you are led astray. If you give it what it desires, you will perish. So basically, so that's why there are a lot of operations you have to do. If you neglect to examine it, you will fall under its control. If you weaken in your struggles against it, you will be overwhelmed. If you follow it in its desires, you will be doomed. The truth is not not in it. Truth is not in it, nor any tendency to good when it becomes excessive. So excessive is always bad. In al-mubadhirina kanu ikhwatu shayatin. In Quran also it says that. So it is the source of affliction, the origin of all wrongdoing, and the Tasara's house, or the treasure house, so of Shaitan. So when excessive of or lacking in moderation, That is the thing, moderation. Ummatun wasatin. So we are ummatun wasatiyah, the middle, radical middle way. That's what is the demand. What it displays as fear is really self-confidence. That's what we needed to build, self-confidence. What it displays as sincerity is only falsehood. This is, they are talking about this nafs al-ammarah, the ego self. It's claimed to be single-minded in the service of God is pure hypocrisy. So that's one of the work we have to do, hypocrisy, how it affects our day-to-day life. And that's one of the 9 vices we have to work on. So what actually whole book is suggesting, if you work on those 9, then you are 90% towards the perfection. Because Ghazali listed almost 200 plus, and also another master gave 300, and even Ibn Arabi listed 3,000 stations. But main thing is what they're saying is if you work on this particular 9, in the Indian philosophy, they said Shodo Ripu, 6 enemies, or in Christian, they said 7 deadly sin. Those 7, but here the number 9 is chosen. We'll go to you what those 9 are, and hypocrisy is one of them. How to work on it and how to remove on it. So. And this one is continued. To discipline the animal soul is an act of compassion, according to Muhasibi, because it leads to ultimate salvation. The rebellious self or the animal soul can become like a beast of burden or like an animal which is at first wild and untamed. It must be trained by constant discipline. So nafs al-ammarah, you must have to train it. And since this discipline will mean the ultimate salvation of the soul as a part of the whole soul, it is in an act of compassion towards it. So you need to love yourself, the ego self. Otherwise, if you don't look at it in a loving way, then you cannot have compassion, because you cannot be too hard on yourself either. Slowly and reluctantly, the soul may be brought under obedience. I already mentioned how Ibn Arabi was arguing with his soul, and if you read Ruhul Qudus, looks like there will be some touching of it by Faris Abdul Hadi, or you can read yourself. There is a talk by Jane Clark on Ruhul Qudus, how Ibn Arabi spoke to his soul and how he had a victory over it in various occasions. There are examples of it. He gave a lot of examples. And this Sufis of Andalusia, that book, which is part of Ruhul Qudus, it has a lot of examples of saints, how they dealt with various situations. So it will still be seeking the accomplishment of its own desires. As a result, it will rest from discipline, yet while the higher soul gradually gains the upper hand, it will be subdued by degrees from the constant pressure brought to bear, and it will become the reproachful soul, nafs al-lawwama, fuad, conscient. So if you can actually improve and your station to reach to nafs al-lawwama, your conscience-dominated soul. If you are able to do this, gradually gains upper hand on your nafs al-ammarah. Because nafs al-ammarah, as you know, it's always attract. It is this greed, attachment, and lust. You know this lust. So those sort of, we will discuss all those. Anyway, the victory is achieved and the struggle is over. Shaitan and his whole host have been routed, and excessive lust and anger and no longer make any appeal. The soul has become a captive um, in complete submission to the will of its Lord, it has become the soul at rest. Nafs al-mutma'innah. So that's the thing. As you see, this is who is saying this. This is Muhasibi, because as you know, he's one of the successful master who left us a booklet how to deal with these sort of things. And then Hassan al-Basri, and he's talking about this, how to use this willpower and free will, how you do it. And he's saying that the other verses cited by the advocates of predestination, such as, here he may be talking about it. He speak of the segregation of humanity on the day of judgment into happy and wretched. They mistakenly extract from verses like this the view that this segregation is decreed by God while the creature is in its mother's womb. This is the misguided idea. However, where this is the case, God's revealed books and prophets would mean nothing, and call of the messengers to them to be pious, and their exhortation to righteousness would equally mean nothing, but would indeed be in vain. Now that this and similar verses mean is that those who have compiled with God's commands will be happy on the last day, while those who flouted them will be wretched or wrecked. So again, according to Hassan al-Basri, who is one of the pioneers, as you see, 720 is close to Sahaba, but he's one of the Tabi'in probably. So unlike our physical traits, our moral traits and other voluntary acts of ours result from our free will. Hassan al-Basri refutes the notion that the foreknowledge by God of the impiety and wickedness of the creatures predestines him to be wicked or impious. He's arguing, and of course, we agree what he's suggested, right? So just as God's foreknowledge of his color, form, and personal traits irrevocably determines that he possesses them. So he's giving example of these things. Say my skin color and everything is already decided, so your fate is decided as well. That's what other people complain, but he refuting it. Hassan al-Basri refuting the analogy between the two objects of foreknowledge, i.e. physical traits and moral traits, is false. Piety and impiety, like other voluntary actions, are the outcome of the free will power of humans. So we choose actually what is with our willpower. We are choosing our destiny. We are choosing whether in that Surah Waqia, the people of right versus people of left, which way we want to go, that we are choosing it. Whereas physical traits are the product of God's predetermination. Physical, yes, but spiritual, we are choosing it. This is Hassan al-Basri refuting and telling us this. So, and then he's talking about we do not habituate our free willpower to choose the good. We will not attain balances, as Al-Ghazali tells us. So he's another master who succeeded winning the soul and perfecting. So if we suffer from the lack of free willpower, this is Ghazali talking about, we are not able to regulate ourselves, body, spirit, soul, consciousness, in a state of balance and harmony, centered in positive disposition like temperance, courage, and wisdom. Because that three triangle, which is at this inner circle, that is, we cannot have that balance if we lose our free will. That's what he's talking about. Through good habits, our free will power, ikhtiyar, will learn to seek the counsel of cognition before making a decision. Our free will power would deliberate come to an understanding of the situation, draw a conclusion. Our free will power is then free to accept or reject the conclusion. Our free will power has a choice. It makes the final decision. Our ability to reason, Al-Ghazali points out, is only a guide, a counselor, because our willpower is naturally disposed to be higher than our ability to reason. So long as person is subservient to his free will power, and that which it goes is nothing, is not in accordance to God's will, he is following his passions. You see, subservient. Willpower has to be under your control. You know, I mentioned this prayer Ibn Arabi says, Allahumma inni as'aluka zillahut billahut zittadbir. Oh Allah, give my lahutiya self, this higher self, give the tadbir power, the governing power, and then my nusutiya self, the taskhir, subservient power. So that is what he's praying, right? In that prayer of a Monday prayer, or I'm not sure, but I quoted it in my earlier lecture. So that's what he's saying. As long as a person is subservient to his free will power, and that which it does is not in accordance with God's will, he's following his passions. So that's what your willpower, you have to control it, because that is one of the tools given to you. His behavior is not that of a servant of God. His spiritual happiness lies in his servitude. You see, servitude, the ubudiyah, that is the part you have to have. So anyway, and here, I think we may not finish all slides today, just take it for granted, because I have already across the 50-minute mark. So I'll read a few more slides, and then we'll go into question mode, so that we will digest whatever we have read. The Quran clearly spells out the relation between divine grace, human endeavor, according to Hassan al-Basri. You know, that's what I just mentioned. Wama tawfiq illa billah. La hawla wa la quwwata illa billah. That is the fact. And this Hassan al-Basri is mentioning God is the author of grace. It is we who turn it into ingratitude and wrongdoing. So grace is constantly pouring upon us. Ya Wahhab, Ya Rahman is constantly pouring his mercy on us. But our readiness, istidat, that's why Ibn Arabi is saying, Rabbi habli istidadan kamilan lekabule faydeka lagdas. This is what in Friday prayer he is praying, right? Rabbi habli istidadan, give me the disposition so that my readiness happen to accept kabul faydeka lagdas. Your fayd is coming, this pure and akdas, this pure and holy effusion is coming, but of course it's up to us how we take it. If we don't take it through our forgetfulness, then of course it's just passing around us, right? It's not falling on us. It's not entering into our heart. God is displeased with the ingratitude and wrongdoing. He already clearly mentioned in this verse. God doesn't like our ingratitude, right? Fazkuruni azkurukum washkuruli wala takfurun. Takfir is not what he is asking us, right? It follows that where ingratitude, the result of God's decree and preordination, qada wa qadar. It follows that where ingratitude, the result of God's decree and predestination, we would be pleased with its perpetrator, but God could not use to decree and then show displeasure at his own decree. You got my point? You got the point of Hassan al-Basri? Do you see Hassan al-Basri saying that if it is predestined that I will be a shaitan in this world, then if I am doing shaitani, God should be pleased with me because he made me for that, right? But it's not the case. See, indeed, injustice and wrongdoing are not part of God's decree. His decree consists of commanding the right. He's saying that, amar bil ma'ruf, nahi anil munkar. Okay, this charity, this kindness to kin, etai zil qurba, prohibiting wrongdoing, munkar, and oppression, he already clearly told us. His decree consists of that command. That is his decree. Some misinterpretation of Quranic verses, according to Hassan al-Basri, leads some to question the view of guidance is from God and error is from us or from Shaitan. And this is what we needed. And I don't know whether you read that book, this other book, which is on Kunho. I mentioned about that book also. It's available in English, and that book has also Ibn Arabi suggested how to deal with this satanic argument. Just like here, people say that this God predestined all these things, so all this just whatever you do, you will end up where you are supposed to go. So that argument. He explained there in that book as well. I think quintessence of the translation is done by James Morris. The quintessence of Murid, that is the book Kunho, La Buddha. I forgot the Arabic title. Anyway, misinterpretation of Quranic verses according to Hassan al-Basri leads some to question the view that guidance is from God and error is from us or from Shaitan. So, and we refer to this verse, I mentioned this verse, which states that God leads astray or guides whosoever he pleased. This is what some people say, that without taking note of what precedes this verse or what follows it. So there is a two verse, one is verse before it and after it, such as the reference in 1427 to God leading the wrongdoers in these two verses, to his leading the wrongdoers astray, not the anybody. And here, as you see, if you look at this Quranic verse, inna allaha yudillu man yasha'u wa yahdi ilayhi min anab. So here, this particular part, they just say inna allaha yudillu man yasha'u. Whoever he wishes, he misguides them. So this is the people say that that's predestined. And then another place here is saying that وَيُدِلُّ اللَّهُ الظَّالِمِينَ. So here Hassan al-Basri referring us to that Allah on the zalimin people that are oppressor to their soul, Allah misguide them only. Okay. So وَيَفْعَلُ اللَّهُ مَنْ يَشَاءُ, and he explained it here. And then he's saying وَمَا يُدِلُّ بِهِ إِلَّا الْفَاسِقِينَ. Allah only fasikin people derke misguide, they misguide, Allah misguide only fasikin. So there are many such examples here, and here also Hassan al-Basri referring us to this verse, which is here, which speaks of material and personal afflictions as pre-recorded in a book, interpreting it to imply predestination. In fact, this verse simply informs us that these afflictions are ways by means of which God tries his servants in this world so that they may not be grieved at what they miss or rejoice at allurements of this life. So, ma asaba min musibatin fil ard wala fi anfusikum illa fi kitabin min qabl an nabraha inna dhalika ala Allahi yasir. So this is not a predestination, and Hassan Basri arguing. It is saying that no calamity can ever befall the earth, and neither your own self, unless it be laid down in our decree before we bring it into being. Verily, all this is easy for God. So some people say that, yeah, you see, I told you, this is the predestination. But as you heard Hassan al-Basri saying that this is just for us to test us. This is only for our testing tool. It doesn't mean that he deliberately doing it. He's doing it only for testing. With respect to a certain voluntary action, such as ingratitude, kufr, God simply knows that the human agents have chosen it at will, as he knows that had they not wished it, they would have quit it. In addition, they are capable of overcoming it because of capacity that he has created in them, in order to test them in the ways of faith and justice. This is borne out by numerous Quranic signs, which these verse numbers are examples. He's talking about فَوَجَدَ عَبْدًا مِنْ عِبَادِنَا وَآتَيْنَاهُ رَحْمَةٌ مِنْ عِنْدِنَا وَعَلَّمْنَاهُ مِنْ لَدُنَّا عِلْمًا. Surah Kahf. Both verses are in Surah Kahf. So, as you know, yeah, Allah is saying that because Allah has given you to quit it, if you have a particular tendency which is pulling you other way, you have the power to come back. If you don't come back, you chose to go that way, right? So we must take responsibility for whatever we do. The prophet never blamed others for whatever happened. He never allowed himself to be a victim. So this is the main theory. This is where I want to end our today's discussion. And then we'll go into next module, I think, in our next class. What do you suggest? Any taker?
I want you to carry on. I like the class.
Oh, is it?
Yeah.
Okay. Then we will finish it in the next half an hour. Rest of the slide, and we can go a bit faster. So, do you guys want to read now some of the slides? What do you think? In that
I'm
way,
up for it. Or
Sure, we
I
can.
yeah.
Yep.
okay.
Siddhi Rod can read it.
Oh, that will be very much appreciated then.
So
Okay. Okay.
Bismillah.
So now this module, would you like to read? Because now we are moving into our mind. So this module is talking about sadr. So yeah, go ahead.
Okay, we turn to Hakim Tirmidhi 869 CE, who shows how our motivational system, nafs al-ammarah, relates to our cognitive system, nafs al-natika. Is that correct? I don't know.
Yes.
Through our mind, sadr. The believer has been put to the test by the animal soul and its desires, for the animal soul has been granted the power and the task of entering into the mind, sadr. Know that the expansion and contraction are attributed to the mind, sadr, alone, and are not attributed to the heart, consciousness. The mind, sadr, of the believer is the abode of the light of Islam. Know that the mind is the place of all knowledge, which is acquired only through study, effort, and burdening oneself by means of listening and relating, whether it be the Quran or the traditions of the Prophet ﷺ or something else, and that such knowledge can be characterized by forgetfulness. The mind is the place into which enters expressible knowledge. Ali ibn Muhammad al-Jurjani, 1414, echoes the words of Hakim Tirmidhi. The human soul is that by which is understood the human mind, which distinguishes him from the animal, and which is given to us by the command of God from heaven, of the true essence of which we know nothing.
That's good. Now we are moving into this. This one has multiple slides. Of course, mine I didn't go through too much because it doesn't have a lot of thing other than what informed in that slide. So, but our consciousness, qalb, is very important, and that's why I put 5 slides. The full text, what she covered in the preface, I put into here. So, who want to read?
I can read.
Okay, go ahead, Aisha.
Bismillah. So our consciousness, qalb, nafs, al-mulhamah, one of the most important findings of this work in the area of cognition and recognition and statement that what the Quran refers to as the heart is actually mentioned in the Quran 91:8 as al-hama, or the nafs al-mulhamah, the inspired soul. This recognition comes from the bayan al-farq, bayan al-sadr wa al-qalb, wa al-fuad wa al-lub of Hakim Tirmidhi, 869 CE.
Yeah, I have the PDF. If anyone wants it, I can send it. But you can find it in the internet. That book is translated in English.
Oh, nice. I would like to have that.
Yes, it's
Abul Hassan.
Yeah.
Abul Hassan Ali ibn Sahl al-Isfahan, a friend of al-Junayd, who gives expression to the wide and vague sense in which the term heart was used when he says, from the time of Adam to the resurrection, people cry, the heart, the heart. I wish that I might find someone to describe what the heart is or how it is, but I find none. What, then, is this heart, of which I hear only the name? That is to say, if I call intellect the heart, it is not the heart. If I call spirit the heart, it is not the heart. If I call knowledge the heart, it is not the heart. All the evidences of truth exist in the heart, yet only the name of it is to be found. As a psychologist, I wanted to know what heart means in terms of psychology so that its role in moral healing becomes clear. The vital role
this is Lale Bakhtar herself talking.
Yeah.
Yeah, I should have mentioned it. Okay.
So I wanted to know what heart means in terms of psychology so that its role in moral healing becomes clear. The vital role that it plays in knowing self and in seeking moral balance had to be decoded, as it were. It is now clear and will become clearer to the reader in Module 12 that the Quranic meaning of the heart is consciousness. Every moment our consciousness turns here and there, and that is the description of our heart as well.
Now, according to Ibn Arabi.
Should I read? Or
yes,
Sister Yasmin wants to read? Okay. According to Ibn Arabi, in Quranic terms, the locus of awareness and consciousness is the heart, qalb, a word that has the verbal sense of fluctuation and transmutation, the qalb. According to Ibn Arabi, the heart has two eyes, reason and imagination, sensitive and deliberative or rational, and dominance of either distorts perception and awareness. The heart, which in itself is unitary consciousness, must become attuned to its own fluctuation. At one beat, seeing God's incomparability with the eye of reason, deliberate or rational imagination, at the next, seeing his similarity with the eyes of sensitive imagination. However, even knowing that the Quranic use of heart refers to consciousness is still not enough. As we are reminded over and over again in the text, the Quran mentions three levels of the soul: the nafs al-ammarah, nafs al-lawwama, and nafs al-mutma'innah. Does the Quran not have a term for heart as part of our soul, the nafs? The eureka moment came when reading Hakim Tirmidhi, who reminds the nafs al-mulhamah, who mentions nafs al-mulhamah, the inspired soul, as the Quranic reference to the heart as consciousness.
You know that verse, فَالْهَمَهَا فُجُورَهَا وَتَقْوَاهَا. That is the verse he's referring to.
So I just wanted to go back to the last line. So when she's saying, so who mentions that nafs al-mulhamah is the inspired soul. So you know how they talk about the ammarah, mulhamah, and the mutma'innah? So it's the one in the middle that is the heart.
Yes, this mulhamah is the inspired soul, and that is the one which mentioned in that verse. And this is in that book, you know, that Hakim Tirmidhi's book, who says farak bain al-qalb, lab, and all those four part. You know, he has a table. I'll pass that one. That table has what is the difference between fuad versus lab versus sadr versus qalb, and he gave a table, and in that table he clarified very clearly. So anyway, your question was the nafs al-mulhamah, the inspired soul. What was the question? Because
no,
here,
it was striking for me. I'm sure it's going to explain in the next slide, but
yes.
It was really striking when he says that she has a realization when she was reading that what is the heart is a question, right? And then she found that the answer was the heart is the consciousness, which is mentioned as the nafs al-mulhamah. So
yes.
it was really, that's what I understood from this statement.
Yes, that is correct. Yeah, go ahead.
So nafs al-mulhamah, qalb, heart, or consciousness, is the abode of that knowledge lying beneath expressible knowledge, and that is the knowledge to wisdom and illusion. The meaning of expressible knowledge, acquired knowledge, is that knowledge which the servant expresses with the tongue. The meaning of the knowledge of illusion is that he realizes God's lordship, his oneness, grandeur, majesty, power, and all his attributes with his consciousness, as well as the realities of his creation and action. This echoed by al-Ghazali, the heart consciousness has been so created that when an inclination or desire appears in it, when the body rises in agreement with that quality becomes more firmly and strongly established in the heart. For example, when mercy for an orphan appears in the heart, that is, when one becomes conscious of a sense of mercy for an orphan, if the hand is placed upon the orphan's head, that mercy grows stronger and the awareness of the heart increases. When the reality of humility appears, one acts humbly with the head too, and it approaches the ground. The intention of all acts of worship and the desire for the good is not that one turns to the world, but to the hereafter. When the desire for this world gains mastery over our consciousness, it's called nafs al-mulhamah or heart, it turns to this world. So when the desire for this world gains mastery over our consciousness, it turns to this world. Its attachment to his world is its desire, and it was so at the beginning of creation. When the will of God and of seeing the hereafter dominate, the nature changes and it turns toward another direction. Therefore, the aim of all deeds is the turning of consciousness. Whoa, that's like deep. I need to read it a couple of times just to
Yes.
get it. Oh, wow.
Yeah, as you see, that's why desire, don't make your hawa as your God. That's why the
Yeah.
guidance is. That's why the guidance is that don't make your hawa as your God. And this is what's so critical about how our heart can be controlled by nafs al-ammara. Just for our willpower allowing it. This is what
Mhm.
this governing power, the tadbir versus the taskhir, Ibn Arabi is saying in his prayer. Continue because we have three more slide on this
Sure.
particular. Yeah.
So basing his view on the Quranic teaching, which is the Quran verse 2689, 1512, 1517, and 67.3, Muhasibi regards the heart consciousness, qalb or nafs al-ammarah, the heart, as the essence of the self, an immaterial principle which has the predominant control of our conscious life, by which reality is perceived and interpreted. According to Hakim Tirmidhi, the nafs al-mulhamah, which is a heart, qalb or consciousness, is the abode of the light of faith. He adds, blindness and sight are attributes of consciousness and not of the mind. Yes. Muhasibi tells us on 116, it is the heart, consciousness qalb nafs al-mulhamah, which constitutes the excellency of human, which distinguishes us from all other created beings. It enables us to know God and to accept or reject his commands. It is the point of union between body and soul, where the spiritual is joined with the temporal. God only desires our consciousness from his servants. In addition to this, which may direct them towards wrongdoing or good, there are also actions of consciousness, including the motives and sources of outward actions, the cognitive, emotional, and volitional processes, the exercise of the virtue and vices, the reception of the psychological states. According to Abdul Karim al-Jili, consciousness is considered to be the eternal light. Consciousness, the heart, our qalb al-nafs al-mulhamah, is the eternal light which was revealed in the essence of existence so that God may see the human being through it. It is the center of God's consciousness, taqwa, and circumference of the circles of all existence. It symbolizes which is described in the Quran as a light. It reflects all the divine names and attributes, and yet at times it directs its attention to some particular name and then becomes a complete reflection of it. Hakim Tirmidhi also relates consciousness of light. Of all of God's creation, there is nothing better than consciousness, which has become virtuous through the light of unity. Intuitive experience, knowledge, marifat, and faith. Nor is there anything purer, cleaner, more pious, more sincere, nor anything more encompassing than a consciousness of God. A consciousness, if God has purified it of impurities and undertaken its revival with the light of truth and cared for and guarded it and provided it with benefits. Such is the consciousness of the believer, and its lights are without limit.
Yeah, because talking about light, so she quoted Sarwardi now.
Sohrawardi, the founder of the School of Illumination, adds, consciousness is a subtle spiritual principle, Latifa. The Prophet ﷺ said, there are 4 kinds of consciousness, hearts. The first is like a pure soil, free from all kinds of vegetation. It is illuminated as if by a shining lamp. It is the consciousness of a true believer. The second is a dark consciousness, which belongs to an ingrate. The third belongs to a hypocrite and is enveloped in a veil. The last is a pure but many-faceted consciousness with an inclination towards good as well as evil. According to Hakim at-Tirmidhi, our consciousness resides in our intellect. That is, our nafs al-mutma'innah contains our nafs al-mulhamah, and then he sums up our beliefs with our cognitive system, describing the various parts of our cognition as mountains. The nafs al-mutma'innah, aql or intellect, is the greatest mountain and the purest station of the nafs al-mulhamah. Islam is a mountain whose land is the mind. Faith is a mountain whose place is consciousness, the heart. Irfan, gnosis, is a mountain whose abode is our consciousness. Nafs al-lawwama and fuad. Unity is a mountain and its resting place is our spiritual intellect, reason. Al-mutma'innah. Nafs al-mutma'innah.
Yeah, so he's saying that Islam is the mountain whose land is the mind, sadr. Faith is a mountain whose place is consciousness. So, and then Irfan is a mountain whose abode is our conscience, which is the nafs al-lawwama, which is the inner heart, the fuad. So, and then of course, Tawheed is a mountain. Its resting place is our spirit, reason. So our reason is where our basically the unity understanding, which is in our aql.
Mm-hmm.
So this is now we're moving into conscience. Yeah, there is not much, only one slide. So finish that one.
Sure. So module 13, our consciousness, Fuad or Nafs al-Lawwama.
Yeah,
It
it's
is our
conscience.
conscience. It
Yeah.
our conscience that is part of our innermost self, as stated by Harith Muhasibi. The hidden inmost aspect of the soul is our conscience, Fuad or Nafs al-Lawwama. It is the ground of the soul, the nafs, so the secret shrine of God himself, where he knows us and we can know him. It is that bottommost depth of the soul, nafs, which lies hidden away, ineffable as God himself. It is our conscience that keeps us from acting against our better judgment, according to Al-Ghazali. It is our conscience that keeps us from acting against our better judgment. Conscience, which is what, is a natural disposition in us and exists to some extent in the animals who are naturally disposed to know that their very survival depends on them staying with the mean on the straight path. Our conscience is also naturally predisposed but because of our free will, we are free to accept or reject the advice of our conscience. In Ibrahim ibn Adam, we meet with the psychological practice of hoarding blame, malamat, for the purpose of self-discipline. Once he was asked if he was ever happy in his life by attaining his heart's desire. He replied, yes, twice. He related 2 different events when people not knowing him mocked and jested at his cost.
Oh, here I
According to
have another
Harith,
slide. Okay. Yeah, that's
oh,
good. Go ahead.
according to Harith Mahasibi, God speaks to our reason through our conscience. Reason is also the means by which God speaks to our conscience, fuad or nafs al-lawwama, through promises and warnings, whereby we can discriminate also between what is morally good and evil, and know what may be beneficial in the world but harmful in the next. Hakim Tirmidhi distinguishes between our conscience and our consciousness. The nafs al-lawwama sees, which is fuad conscience, sees and beholds, whereas consciousness, qalb, nafs al-mulhamah, merely knows. Conscience, fuad nafs al-lawwama, benefits from perception, whereas consciousness, qalb nafs al-mulhamah, delights in knowledge. However, as long as conscious does not perceive, consciousness cannot benefit from its knowledge. Hakim Tirmidhi explains the meaning of the word fuad. The word fuad derived from faldat, benefit, because our conscience sees the benefits of God's love.
Beautiful. Now let's talk about the spirit intellect. Anyone
Okay.
else want to read or
Yeah.
continue then? Yeah.
Sidi Rod, you want to read? Or
Yeah,
Shani?
I'll give you a break, yeah.
Yeah, thanks.
Bismillah. Our reason, spirit, intellect. عقل نفس المتمنة. معلش. We now turn to the fourth aspect of our cognition, our spirit, intellect, or ability to reason, beginning with the views of Muhasibi 857. Reason, عقل, is a natural instinct, غرازة, which makes use of experience to acquire knowledge and to comprehend it. It is a gift which God has bestowed on us in order that we may understand the revelation sent down and so may become a believer, God conscious, taqwa, abiding in the divine commands. Reason, Muhasibi says, enables the believer to understand the unity of God and his power and sovereignty, and also the nature of wrongdoing and its consequences, and the sickness which afflicts the soul, and how to seek the remedy for it. Our reason is convinced by the presentation of facts and by proof concerning that which is not concrete but abstract, material for thought. He admits that the intellect, if it is weak, finds it difficult to prefer the service of God to wrongdoing, to choose knowledge rather than ignorance, and to prefer the following of the religious, to prefer the one second, my eyes are going. To prefer the service of God to wrongdoing, to choose knowledge rather than ignorance, and to prefer the following of the religious life to the pursuit of the pleasures of this life. If rightly directed, it is one of the greatest gifts of God. Muhasibi regarded reason, he regarded reason as something distinct, and concerning it, he wrote a treatise which became celebrated among those who discussed the subject of the intellect and its nature. Where is this treaty? Muhasibi defines reason as a natural disposition or instinct bestowed by God upon his human creatures, which is invisible to them, both in themselves and in others, and can be neither touched nor tasted. But God has made them to know him by means of reason, and through it they bear witness to him. For through the intellect they recognize what is beneficial to them and what is injurious. And he who can distinguish between these two in things temporal knows that God has bestowed upon him reason. The authority of our reason over us increases and decreases according to Hakim al-Tirmidhi. Reason intellect, عقل النفس المتعاملة معلش, is one in name. Its authority decreases and increases. It is both fundamental and at the same time derivative, since it becomes stronger through the strength of its fundamentals and increases with the increase of its authority. Reason is the most excellent part of the spirit, ruh, and the core of everything as its purest part. Therefore, it was that reason was called the intellect, kernel, lube. Aql is used not only of the quality of intelligence by which we perceive, but of the precipitant mind itself. Muhasabi himself uses aql to cover both senses.
So we are done. As you see, we have covered our soul body, how elements and qualities affect our mind and behavior. And then we spoke about or read this, how our willpower and free will help us to stay on the path, because it's not predestined which path we take. That is, Allah says, لِيَبْلُوَكُمْ أَيُّكُمْ أَحْسَنُ عَمَلًا. You know that Surah Mulk verse, right? خَلَقَ hayat al-maut, just to test us, right? So how he is testing us, giving us these two things, the willpower, iradah and ikhtiyar. So Allah doesn't lead a person who is on the good path. Allah doesn't lead him to astray. Only wrongdoers. This is a clear message we need to understand from the Quran. Relationship between divine grace and human endeavor. So of course, some people say that you keep doing endeavor, divine grace will come to you, but guidance is one of that. That's what, of course, the theory as well. But if you see that God would not withhold divine grace deliberately, because it's predestined. That's what we needed to understand here. Human endeavor, yes, that's what we have to have. That's why, that's what this tendency, because according to Hadith, Siratul Mustaqim, straight line, on both sides, the distractions are there. One side, the straight path, you are. One side is your attraction, another is the repulsion. So if you attract, you go to up the path. Of course, on the other side as well. So you have both attract and repel power. With that, you manage to keep yourself on a straight path. I don't know whether you have seen walking on the rope or walking on a bamboo base, made a single bamboo, a bridge. So when you don't have anything to hold, how do you walk on it? You balance.
Use your hands to balance, yeah.
Yeah, hands to balance. So that's what you have to do. This shahwadiyya and ghadab, those two, attraction and repulsion, and that's how you have to keep on a balance. God doesn't take you on one side deliberately. So this is a satanic idea that God chooses whether I will be bad or I will be good. It's completely incorrect.
And one of the things that's really striking in the reading was that, like, the willpower is a faculty and reason is a faculty, and they work together. So we use reason to say, okay, this is good or not, should I do it or not, what are the consequences, and you just go through the whole process. And then willpower get to choose, yes, I want to go take a risk of whatever, and then, oh no, I don't want to. So we can't blame God for our own willpower, because he gave us willpower, which is the iradah and ikhtiyar. So we choose that, yes, this is I reason it, then I choose that I want to go with it. I don't want to go with it. Let's say I want to go with on a wrong path. This path leads me away from God. I choose it using my reason to do the pros and cons, and then with my willpower. And then when I go on the path away from God, then he still sends, guides and messengers and even people in our life or events to push us away from that path, but we still choose to be on that path, continue, then how can we blame him, So I feel like the whole process of being on a path comes from our free will, from a reason, from, I don't know if iradah and ikhtiyar is, I think is we have, how do you translate it in English? But it's ability to choose and then just be, like you have the power, power to choose and power to do, and the decision you make or I make. So what I got is that these are all just faculties, and how I use it, I'm responsible, and the willpower is free. It has the freedom to choose. Even after all the reasons, I still choose to go in wrong ways. I'm responsible.
Yeah, and also if you go into the wrong way, there is a path of return as well. Tawbah.
Yeah.
Right? So it's not that you choose once and you are done and that you can come back. No, God gave you
And
that option.
yeah.
Hmm.
And then how he's talk about when you go on to the strength, or what you do something, if you feel compassion for an orphan and you act on that compassion, that your heart becomes stronger, right?
Yeah.
So if I'm going to do something good, it's strengthening the inner light by how I felt, and I took action, and then it comes back to make it bigger or stronger. So if we are going the path of goodness, it is going to increase our heart in goodness or strength. And if I go into the path of wrong and continue on it without repenting, then it's going to increase me into what I'm investing into.
Yeah, what he's looking from us is juhud, the endeavor. What Allah is looking from us is endeavor, with an intention, endeavor. And what is that? Alladhina jahadu fi subulana lanahdiyannahum. Anyone who is doing endeavor, struggle, striving towards our pathways, we guide them. That is what this verse clearly articulating, that we just needed to put an effort. That's why this hadith is, if you give one step, Allah comes 10 steps towards you. So this is why the fazkuruni azkurukum. If you remember me, I remember you. And if you spend $1, I give you $10. So this is the main theory. That's why I think we needed to convince ourselves that juhud is the way to be on the path. And that's how we can achieve the perfection. So I think many thanks for staying with me with this long summary. So, but what we will continue is we'll continue reading the whole book, but we'll increase our now tools component. Maybe, what do you think?
I think Ustaz Noor, Shani, she had the question way before. Do you still want to ask your question, Shani? No?
I wanted to make a comment when we were talking earlier that really struck me how, in Western thinking, we have this concept of, how the intellect is, the more prized or sophisticated or desired aspect of our mind, that you have to think objectively. You have to not involve the emotions. You have to keep the, heart and emotions aside. But that when you use your intellect, without it being clouded, so to speak, by the heart, that you're going to get the best outcome. You're going to be more successful, or that's kind of, the Western thinking. And obviously in my life, I have not found that to be, that to be true, interestingly. So looking at, this Islamic model really is showing us how there has to be a balance of all of these things, right? That it's really that balance is so key. And I was thinking, about the word aql, which usually is translated as intellect, right? And how the root of aql, I know very limited Arabic, so, correct me if I'm wrong. But from what I've heard is that the root of aql has to do with the rope that is used to restrain the neck of the camel, because if you don't restrain its neck, it's going to go everywhere, whatever it wants, And so looking at the aql or the intellect in that sense, that really, in contrast to, Western thinking, that if we just rely on our intellect, we are really going to be lost, And myself personally, growing up since the age of 5 in the US, I was exposed primarily to, Western thinking and philosophy and psychology and all of these things. And so I grew up pretty much most of my life thinking that, the mind and the intellect, is, the road to success. For example, I never wanted to read the Quran in Arabic, how as Muslim parents always try to make you read Quran in Arabic. And so I was, the rebellious child who never wanted to read Quran in Arabic because I couldn't understand it. It didn't make any sense to me. It's like, why do you want me to read it? I don't know what it says, And so I would always, kind of run away from that. But I'd always read the Quran in English. For me, it was like a fascinating storybook. I've loved reading the Quran in English since I was a kid. And, in my day, we didn't have the internet or even limited television and all of these things. So books really were, the primary entertainment, for me. And so I don't know where I was going with that, but that, that whole contrast of the aql and prizing it, I felt like really led me astray in my life. Finally, I was at a point in my life, looking around and thinking, I've used my life, in pursuit of this intellect, and where has it really gotten me? Am I really satisfied? Am I content? Like, what am I supposed to do with all this stuff? I mean, living the American dream is great, but what does it really mean in the end? And that's, where my spiritual journey really started, was to, it actually really was triggered by reading Arabic. I felt like God somehow inspired me to read Arabic, even though I've fought it my entire life. I was not interested in reading, even as an adult. I never wanted to take a tajweed course. I really was not, I was like, oh, why do I need this? But somehow, by God's mercy, God tricked me into signing up for a tajweed course that I didn't know I signed up for. And then when it came time for the tajweed class, the teacher said, okay, now we're going to go into the tajweed component. And I was like, oh, teacher, I didn't sign up for this, so I'll come back in a few months. And she was like, no, you already paid for this. You signed up. So I was like, oh, okay, I guess I will, I guess I'll just stay then if I already signed up, but, no harm in it or whatever. So I kind of reluctantly, came into this tajweed course. The first day of it was life-changing for me because, as a 50-plus-year-old, Muslim, product of growing up in the West, I thought I knew everything. I'm just such a great Muslim. I'm a great human being. I'm so accomplished. I'm so intelligent. I thought very highly of myself, thinking, I'm just, just one step, away from heaven. Like, I'm ready to go, God. Like, just let me take that step. I'm ready to come to heaven, And so I felt like that was the day that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala really put me in my place, And so the first day of the tajweed class, the teacher told us to read something. I can't remember what it was, but it was one in ayah or something like that, and it had the word Allah in it. So I read the word Allah, and the teacher said, "Oh, you're pronouncing it incorrectly." And I felt like I just got a slap in the face because I'm like, "What is she talking about? Like, I can't pronounce the name of Allah correctly. Like, what is she saying? You know?" And so I was kind of taken aback. You know, this was just like the first day of class. I'm like what is going on here? And so then she explained to me, you know, the rules of lam, you know, how it's pronounced heavy in the word Allah, and in like other words that are preceded by kasra, it's pronounced light, like Bismillah, and then you know, Allahu Akbar kind of thing. And so when she explained it to me, it made sense. And then I remembered like all these Arabic people, that's how they say it. But I just thought it was their accent. I didn't know it was like a pronunciation thing, like, you know, like I was wrong and they were right kind of thing. I just assumed, oh, it's just their accent. And so after the class, I really it really just like hit me, you know, like God, like all these 50 plus years I've been saying your name wrong and you haven't like struck me down by lightning, you know, like you still put up with me, you still listen to me, you still help me, you're still there for me, like I don't deserve this. I'm just like, you know,
so beautiful.
You know, it's like somebody says your name wrong, you get annoyed, right? You're like, oh, they don't like, that's a you know, American concept, like, you know, if someone said your name wrong, it's kind of a rude thing, like, you know, no matter what language it is, you try to make an effort to pronounce somebody's name correctly, otherwise it's just really considered, you know, disrespectful. And so I was thinking, like what does God think of me? Like all these years, I'm not even pronouncing his name correctly. And then it was actually time for Asr, so I went to pray Asr, and before Asr I made the intention, and I said, you know, with beginning with the salah, like every time I say the word Allah, I'm going to make an effort to say correctly from this point onwards, you know, and I asked God to forgive me and that I was going to do this. And during that salah, it was like the most life-changing salah of my life, you know. And after that, it's like I realized, what had I been missing all these years? You know, it's like, you know, and after that, I never wanted to be, you know, late for salah, you know, subhanAllah. So it's, you know, so today, you know, it just made me really think about like this, you know, concept of the intellect and the heart. And, you know, growing up in the Western tradition, you think it's, you know, one is more important than the other, but really what Allah is making us realize, you know, through the Quran, through Islam, through, you know, reciting Quran. And honestly, when I started learning Tajweed and reading Quran in Arabic, all of the 50 plus years of intellectual growth, or whatever you want to call it, that I had achieved seemed like just a minuscule, you know, piece of nothing, because the openings that I got just from reading something I couldn't understand, you know, was causing me to understand and realize and experience all of these openings that, you know, intellectual reasoning for 50 plus years didn't do for me. And it was extremely humbling, because I was like, Ya Allah, like all these years I've been reading your book in English so I can understand it, so I can do what it says, and I still wasn't doing it. And now I'm reading it in Arabic. I don't understand a word of it, but it's making me do everything. It's because it's profoundly affecting your heart, right? So it's
the sound, yeah.
Yeah. It's you know, resonating, you know, with a part of our body or soul that we can't necessarily verbalize. You know, it's like this, you know, understanding, this knowing that's not necessarily in the conscious awareness, or easy to grasp until, you know, the key is opened and it comes into your conscious awareness. But before that, it was hidden. You know, you didn't even know it was there, subhanAllah. So yeah, this is very fascinating. I really enjoyed the series. Thank you.
Many thanks. Basically,
beautiful.
Okay.
Noor, if I want to just add, just want to piggyback off Shani, because there was two things that struck me, which was one is the indoctrination of this life when we come here, by society. You're talking about America.
Yeah.
Right, the UK. Noor is in Australia. Aisha, you're in America as well, right?
I'm in Canada.
You're in Canada. Okay,
Yeah,
merci.
same.
Same, but different, as they say. But there was one part of the slide which was very beautiful. Is like I'm just gonna just say it. Is I think it's the purest form of the spirit is that when we come to remember Tawheed, and this is what the problem is in the Muslim communities is that they know the articles of Islam, pray, fast, the rest, yeah.
Yeah.
But the actual foundation of submission to God is the articles of faith. That's the actual, you know, when you build a building, you have to put like rocks, lots of rocks or whatever. And skyscrapers, if you see skyscrapers, how they build circles, lots of 10, 20 big circles, so that they can put the actual tower up. And those circles are the faith. We have to, and the first one as well, Tawheed. What that like we cannot say Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah wa ashhadu anna Muhammad Rasulullah unless we understand in our head the rational, the oneness. So this is the rationality in my mind right now, but my spirit is speaking another language, and there are other languages, by the way, which is not human wise, that are like the angelic realm language is not Arabic, but in order for us to reach it, we have to use Arabic. It's a medium. And just like when we make art, when we see art and we do music, we dance or we would do whatever, we become a medium. It's the same thing. It's just different languages as well. But subhanallah, everything you just shared with us, your experience, it's so beautiful because it shows like the shaitan, for example. I love my mother. She always says stuff like, the shaitan is like a fungus. The shaitan is like a bacteria. The shaitan is like if we fast. Today I felt very sick, by the way, in the morning, and I didn't do my usual routines and activities. I usually go hiking and all the stuff, and I couldn't today. And I'm like, I had breakfast at 8 in the morning, I think, and Fajr is at 5:20 in the morning. So I was like, I'm going to fast until Maghrib. I'm not really doing the Muslim fast because it's supposed to be from Fajr. I was like, I need to do fast or whatever. I fasted for this whole amount of time. I broke my fast with garlic and yogurt and cucumbers. I had some apple cider vinegar. I had habbat barakah, which is black seed oil, and some olive oil. Subhan, and throughout the day, I took a shower. I was doing dhikr and all this stuff. Just saying these things in Arabic, it's sound frequencies. There is vibrations. There are a lot of things. There is alag nafsi that happens. It's a ghusul that we can't even see. Subhanallah. Subhanallah. Now, with God's will, I don't know if I will get more sick tomorrow, but I feel much better. Alhamdulillah. Don't know whether it's psychological. I don't know whether it's metaphysical, but it's there. Subhanallah. I just say alhamdulillah.
Yeah. That's what I realized. It's just intellectually knowing, knowing Islam, knowing the pillars, even doing them mechanically really doesn't change anything until you feel it in your heart.
Really, exactly.
You have that full connection. When you get that full connection is when it really becomes meaningful. And I think that's, the sincerity that Allah is talking about, right? Otherwise, it's just, all pieces of a puzzle, but it's not really put together.
Alhamdulillah. Okay, so any other feedback or any other comment? Anyone else? Okay.
No, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.
Great.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Thank
for
you.
making
You're
all these
welcome.
beautiful slides. It's very nice.
Now, alhamdulillah, we are reading and then sharing it. I hope you guys are reading as well. So in that way, at least we are reading together. So that is the part of it. And yeah, so we'll continue. As I said, more focus I'm trying to bring now, applying some of the story and start some of the Enneagram stuff a bit more. Let's see how it goes. Yeah?
Sidi Noor, can you share the previous class slides as well? Because they're very beneficial for us to go
Yeah,
through
I
them.
thought I gave it to
Is it in the Google documents? So you gave me the today's one. I shared it on the group on the WhatsApp. But the first week, second week, third week, do we have them
okay, I
or not?
gave it to what's her name? Ala. She didn't put it. Maybe I'll just put it back then.
Okay.
Because I gave it to her. She was uploading all of them. Anyway, I'll call you. Yeah. No, I'll
Habibi,
give
okay.
it. Yeah. Okay then. Thanks.